Hello. Me and the cats were just reviewing the top 5 episodes of season 1 of the classic Twilight Zone. And I had some thoughts as to them, and I thought I'd just make a little clip of my top ones for this season, essentially. The top one, I'm not going to take them in any particular order. I'll just do them in production order, or at least airing order, I think it is. So that means that Time Enough at Last comes up as number 1. So Time Enough at Last is very classic Twilight Zone because it builds up to this little character. The character is more important than any sort of cool special effects, and it has a very lovely twist ending. So you don't actually foresee what is about to happen. And you have Burgess Meredith, of course, who does a fantastic job of acting out this person who is liberated by the apocalypse, essentially. And then you have the twist ending, which has become, I wouldn't say synonymous with Twilight Zone, but it is very iconic. And it is one of those twist endings that gets reused a lot and that people will recognize. So that's the first one. Yeah. Next up for this season is And When the Sky Was Open. I have a fascination for episodes that are about the world not being what you think it is. There's a brilliant example of this in the remake in the 80s, where a man has a sort of aphasia, but not a real aphasia. It's the world changing around him. This one has the same vibe, where you have these people who are being forgotten successfully down the line until none of them are left, and how the world keeps rewriting and reshaping itself so that these people are excluded. And there are no great big effects to this. There's no big fades. There's nothing like that. It's just a matter of the acting being done and how these people are portrayed as being completely sincere and completely reliable and then gone. And it just speaks very dearly to me, and that's why it's on my list. Next is The Purple Testament. And I think this is one of those episodes that most people would sort of associate with classic Twilight Zone. While the special effects aren't anything in particular, at least not the one actually signifying what's going on, it's just a light on someone's face. It is a very telling episode. It's very gripping. It has very convincing characters. And I think that a lot of people, if they don't know it explicitly as Twilight Zone, they at least have a vague sort of feeling when they see it that this is probably Twilight Zone. So that's why it's on this list. Next on our top 5 is The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street, which is a study in the darkness of human nature. This, of course, gets a remake later on. And that one is considerably less dark, I feel, because it's all about, humans doing weird things to other humans. This one is far more sinister because it is more of a clinical study as done by the frightful aliens upon our hapless little race. But it does show that humans are the worst monsters, that we are the worst to ourselves, worse than anyone else could be to us. It's a very haunting episode, I find, and I adore it, of course. Then we come to a nice place to visit. And the afterlife that's captured in this episode is very different from some of the others that we get to see in this the series overall. And it is haunting. I like how the seeming idea of paradise turns into literally hell. It's a very classic Twilight Zone story in that it has a twist and how it's categorized, and of course Dal Pip. But it has a deeper sort of haunting idea behind it, which I've always found very fascinating. It's a rarity that you get multiple episodes about a similar topic like the Afterlife.
but the Twilight Zone pulls this off with remarkable ease.
Finally on this list, we have the After Hours. And while this does make it somewhat bigger than the top 5, that's what happens sometimes. The After Hours is, of course, the episode with the mannequins. It gets referenced in the movie, but doesn't get a remake in the movie, the Twilight Zone movie. But it does show up here and there. I believe that parts of this was the sort of inspiration for several movies. There's one from the late 80s, early 90s about, is it Kim Cattrall that is a mannequin that comes alive? I can't remember anymore. But this sort of concept, this sort of uncanny valley quality of mannequins, and what if they were actually alive? It inspired the writers of this episode, and I think they did a fantastic job. It has one of my favorite special effects in it, not a specific special effect, but the type of special effect, and it is the whole standing still thing. We've talked about this in several episodes, and it's really darn difficult to do. And you get an example of that in this very episode, where it is really quite difficult to stand still and act as a mannequin before you get to come alive. It's a very enjoyable episode, and it's definitely therefore going to close out our top, well, not 5, episode list for season 1 of Twilight Zone. Thank you for sticking with me, and I will see you in season 2. Bye!